Hey everybody, welcome to Sex is Medicine. I am your host, Miss Davy Ward Erickson, and I am delighted to be here with you for another amazing episode of Sex is Medicine. This evening, I have the honor of speaking with the lovely Eden Adele, who I've known for many years through virtually. We've known each other. We've been connected for many years. And for some reason, you were never on my show. I'm like, how did that happen? How did we go this whole time? And you were never on my show. And I see your stuff constantly, such beautiful posts on social media, such wonderful invitations that you give your community. Eden is considered by many to be the foremost self-love and relationship advisor in America. She is committed to creating practical ways to encourage dynamic women over 40. I love that specifically. I love that target, to create, maintain, and enjoy lavish love from the inside out. Because we women over 40, we're just getting started, right? That's the way I feel. I'm like, I finally just arrived, right? Yeah, and it's a whole new game here with this like self-love and confidence and all the healing that we've acquired and generated through the years. So I love how you're really targeting how women in our demographic can begin cultivating and creating the relationships that we want.
Yes. More please. More and more, please.
Yeah. And so today we're going to talk about passion and intimacy in the pandemic. But before we dive into that, Eden, I want to ask you, like, how did you decide, or what made you decide that you wanted to target this demographic of women 40 and over in your work?
You know what? I think it's probably one of the most accurate examples of that saying that you teach what you most need to know.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
That's really what it was, because I am her.
Yeah.
I am her, and I am trying to figure it out, and I'm still figuring it out. I mean, yes, there's been a lot of research. Yes, I've done a lot of work. Yes, done the therapy, and I've done a lot of introspection, and I've discovered a lot of things, and goodness knows I've been through a lot of things, just like everybody in my demographic, right? But there were still things I need to know. There are still things I need to know. And so my goal now is to stay open to my own journey, my own progress, let it unfold as it should, and to share the journey, so that others who are on that journey with me, who may not be as comfortable admitting it or embracing it, might feel a little more comfortable if they see somebody else and go, oh, well, if she can, maybe me can too.
I love that. And it's like a guide on your journey, right? And it's not that it's not like we're done, right? It's not like we're like completely real. It's not like there's no more work to be done, but it's like we've traversed this path. Maybe we were the original bushwhackers on this path, the original pioneers, right? And so it's like we can support you and guide you along this path because we know the terrain. We've been there. We've been traversing this path back and forth for however long. But I love that concept of we're always ever evolving and still learning and still growing. I think it's a huge mistake in the coaching world to think that you're ever done. That's so limiting, because there's so much more to learn and there's so much more growth. And for those of us who are really doing the work, we're constantly evolving. We're constantly growing. So I love that. I love that.
It's one of the privileges of being on this side of 40.
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean? It's like, and now I'm 58 now. So
I would have never. Wait! Stop! Stop! I'm like, wow, you're like, maybe 42, 43, you're 58. May we all be blessed.
You are so awesome. Thank you.
Wow.
Very sweet.
Wow.
But even more to the point, reinventing what that means now. Because I don't look like my grandmother did when she was 58.
No, amen.
And I have to be okay with that. You know,
Yeah.
I have to be okay with, I'm not somehow being disrespectful to her, or I'm dishonoring her
Mhm.
because I'm not modeling my life after hers.
Yeah.
I'm blazing a new trail that just fits me. And that is why I'm here. That's why we're all here. We're not here to be copies of what came before.
Yeah.
And we're not here to project what might be on the way. We're here to be present in this moment, the best of ourselves
Yeah.
for the rest of our lives.
Oh,
That's in this perpetual now, the perpetual now.
yeah.
We are always on a mission to be ourselves at our best.
Yeah.
And that means lavish loving.
Yeah.
Let's face it, that's what really makes life worth living.
Hmm.
Seriously. I mean, I know it's cliche and all that, but nobody got on their deathbed and said, oh, I wish I spent more time at the office.
Yeah, this is I love lavish loving, lavish loving. I love
Lavish.
that concept. And that is not a concept that's
The,
spoken of
yes,
often. Lavish loving,
lavish.
over abundant,
Yes,
overwhelming, prosperous, abundant
yes.
love.
Big, full, magnificent, transcendent, all of those big, amazing things that love is intrinsically. We're the ones who try to turn it into something else because we're afraid of it.
Yeah.
And when we try to make it something that is not, it inevitably ends up hurting us.
Yeah.
And we don't trust the resiliency of our own hearts many times.
Wow.
We just don't. Our hearts really are built for loving.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
their only real purpose. It's really the only real purpose for having one, is
Mm.
to find all these myriad ways to show love and receive love throughout our lives.
Yeah.
That's why we have all these relationships, to give us all these places and all these spaces to exercise our love muscle.
Yeah.
That's why we have them.
Yeah.
And that's why it does us no service to try to shrink that, especially when it comes to intimate relationships.
Yeah. I
That's
love it.
probably the worst place to try to shrink it, because those relationships are the ones that typically give us our most growth opportunity.
And they're also, yes, exactly, because those intimate relationships often mirror our wounded places, those places inside of ourselves that haven't been integrated, that haven't been acknowledged, all of our attachment trauma from our parents not meeting our needs, all of that is going to come up in those really intimate spaces.
Yes.
And I love what you said about love being our purpose. One of the most fascinating things for me in researching trauma and brain development and neuroscience is that the human brain is wired for love. Like
Yes.
that, period. The human brain is wired for love and connection. And when we don't have those needs for love and connection met through at different stages in our life, it causes traumatic brain things to form. It it literally damages our brain.
It
Literally
does.
damages the brain to not receive
Absolutely
love.
does.
That is incredible, because that so flies in the face of like the conventional argument that, it's a dog eat dog world and survival of the fittest, and conflict is, like wars and conflict, and that's the norm.
Yeah.
Actually, that is completely false. Actually, we are, as human beings, we are wired for love, connection, community, and harmony.
Yes,
It's a whole new paradigm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why in those environments and environments like that, we function at our highest levels,
Yeah.
because we have the emotional safety that allows us to just explore. One great place to see that is with children. It's like when
Yeah.
you're raising little kids and you allow them to explore, but you're close enough that they can look back and still see you,
Yeah.
and they feel safe to keep
Uh-huh.
exploring. And then they come back and they get their cuddles and they get their
Mm.
kisses and they go explore more, because they know they're safe
Yeah.
instinctively. They don't have language, they don't have cognition really. They're mostly instinct. They're just little bundles of instinct, and that's how they function. That's how they figure out what to do and what not to do. So when they feel safe, they behave differently. And children who attach securely are different, even
Yes.
around other people, than children who attach insecurely or anxiously. They behave differently. because their brains form differently.
Exactly.
Going back to what you were saying,
Yeah.
that they process differently. That's anatomy. That's not just a feeling or an idea. It really is anatomy.
Yeah.
So it's worth the investment of the time and the looking and the discomfort and the awkwardness and the whatever might come along with researching how to love lavishly for you.
Yeah.
It's worth the investment because it's one, it's an investment nobody else can make. Two, you're going to be the greatest beneficiary of it. And three, no one else can do it. No one else can do what you are here to do. Period. Paragraph. So if you don't do it, it won't get done.
Wow. Wow. That's a huge imperative. Calling all soul seeds, star seed here. No one else can do what you can do. Right? So we have to heal our brains. So we can fulfill our mission.
Right.
And love is the medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
Love is medicine. It really is. There's so much research that supports that, even medically.
Mm-hmm.
The differences between people who have loving environments, even at their most ill, you know, their prognosis, the way they handle the treatment, the way their bodies recover, all of those things are impacted by whether they are loved or not.
Yeah.
Even the most superficial statistics about marriage show that married people are typically happier, healthier, and they live longer.
Mm-hmm.
Those are statistics.
Yeah.
They're not a feeling. They're numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers don't care how we feel about them. You know what I'm saying? So even that, there's even support and proof there that it's worth doing.
Yeah.
It has an impact. It has an impact on the quality of your own life. Never mind the other people that you're sharing your love with. It's what makes life worth putting your feet on the floor every day.
Amen. Preach.
It is. It is. It is. I'm a big fan of lavish love. Big fan.
So then here we are in this pandemic. And
Yeah.
one of the ways that, you know, we express love as human beings, one of the most important ways, is through physical presence and physical touch and physical connection. And yet, because of the nature of this pandemic, we could kill people by doing that, or we could be killed ourselves from doing that.
Right.
So let's talk about love in the time of the pandemic. So just like an overview from the standpoint of cultivating lavish love, what are you seeing? How are you seeing this pandemic affect people on the ground?
Well, I'm seeing two things. One thing is relationships that were already stressed got exponentially more stressed once the lockdown happened.
Yeah.
To be expected. Because even good relationships got stressed when the lockdown happened. Why? Because we've never done it before. We have no frame of reference how to navigate this successfully. We are literally making it up as we go along. Literally. We don't have any clue when it's going to be over. And we don't have any clue what over really looks like. We just know it's not going to look like what we used to do, which adds another layer of stress. The big unknown, living on question marks. Humans don't do that well. That's why we're always looking for answers to stuff. We don't do ambiguity well. We like to at least believe we know stuff. You know, whether we actually do or not is a different issue. But when we believe we do, we navigate the world differently.
Because we have that security that we were talking about before, right? We're securely attached to what we believe is coming. We're securely attached to our future.
Yes, yes. And that's why it's so traumatic when all of that changes, especially in this way, when the change is so extreme and it's so dramatic and it's so sudden and nobody saw it. You know, so there was no preparation for this in any way. So for stress relationships, they got worse quickly. It wasn't like it took a long time, because a lot of the things that they depended on to relieve the stress, they couldn't do anymore.
Exactly.
They couldn't leave.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't go to the restaurant. They couldn't go visit a friend. They couldn't stay at work longer. They couldn't do any of the normal things that they did to cope.
Yeah.
They can't do those anymore. So now, not only are they stuck, but a lot of them are stuck in small spaces. So there's nowhere where they can disappear from each other's presence. It's like they're always really close together, right underneath each other, trying to create privacy in a place where you can literally turn your head and see them there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And if
all
they're
that,
already,
they're rubbing up against each other.
yes,
Friction.
in the worst way. And I don't mean that in a good way, right?
Yeah.
It's like in the worst way. So, but on the upside, good relationships actually got a lot better because they were already missing each other. They were already wanting more time together. They already had demanding jobs. They had family demands. They had civic and social and government and who knows what other demands that were always taking them out of the house. And now they don't have to create excuses to spend time together. So they're using this time to do, they're being so creative with this time together. Some of my favorite TikTok videos came out of this. You know, it's like couples just having fun with each other, telling jokes, pranking each other, coming up with dances, filming their date nights. All these kinds of things are popping up all over social media from happy couples just loving each other through a rough time. And it's been awesome to see. It's one of the good things about having social media is that a lot of these couples are willing to share that. And, you know, it's not all sunshine and roses, and they have their moments where they are fearful or they wonder, you know, like we all do, what's next? You know, how is this ultimately going to affect us? What is this going to look like? You know, they're struggling with all the same things everybody else is struggling with. The difference is that they're choosing to make it work for them instead of allowing it to tear them apart. It's just a conscious choice. It really is. They don't have magic. They just made a conscious choice. It's like, you know what? Okay, we didn't plan this. Didn't know how to plan for it. And we have no idea when it's going to be over. So we've got today. How do we make the most out of today? Yeah. And they literally do that every day. But the truth is, that's what happens in happy couples anyway. Like without the pandemic. That's how they do it. That's how you see these people who've been together 20, 30, 50 years, and they're still giggling and holding hands and smiling at each other. That's what they did literally every day. How do we make the most out of this day together? One question answered over and over and over again. That's how they did it. That's where the lavish comes from.
I love that concept of one question. One question that you ask every day is, how do we get the most out of this relationship? Or how do we, is that the question? Did I remember that right?
Yes.
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 How do we get the most out of this relationship every day?
That's it. How do we get the most out of this relationship today? Wow. What do we do? What do we do? Just today. We'll get to tomorrow when we get there, and we can't do anything about yesterday. But today, that we can do something about. What do we do?
And I guess, you know, and the beautiful thing about the quarantine and COVID is that, like you mentioned, like so much of our modern life is full of distraction, right? We're overcommitted. There's, you know, the to-do list never ends, and it's all vital. It all has to be done right now, right?
And by you.
And by, yes, exactly. So the beautiful thing that the pandemic has given us is a break from the extra to do to focus on exactly correct. Like what do we need to do right now today to survive right now today?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like once we take care of that, You know, we take care of each other. We make sure everybody's good on the survival front. Now let's see what we can do to make each other smile. We don't have to rehang the universe. Let's just share a laugh. Let's have an impromptu slow dance in the middle of the living room. Let's something really small on the grand scheme of things, but the impact isn't small when you stack them.
Exactly.
Just like anything else that you stack, only the pieces are small. The stack isn't. So its impact is huge. It's huge. It's the consistency that breeds the safety that makes people willing to open their hearts for love again.
I want to highlight that again because I got chills when you said that. It's the consistency that builds the safety, that allows for the trust.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. That's why consistency is so important. You know, people focus on a bunch of other things that really don't have nearly as much impact on their relationship as consistency does. Because the truth is, your relationship isn't made out of how you feel, it's made out of what you do. So whatever you do most, that's what your relationship is, no matter how you feel about it or how your partner feels about it. Your relationship is what you do about it. Not what you think about it, what you believe about it, or what you feel about it. It's what you do about it. And that's whatever you are consistently, that's what you've made your relationship. The good news is that's the exact same way you can remake your relationship. Mm-hmm. And that's what people who stay happy together all those years do all the time. They change with each other's changes. They change how they love each other along with how they change as individuals. They commit to each other's changes. They don't commit to staying the same. They don't expect each other to be the same. That's not what does it. Nobody's the same at 50 as they were at 20.
God, we hope not, right?
That's another show, David. That's another show. Because I could pull up some 50-year-olds that are still dating like they were in high school. But that's a different discussion. That's why it doesn't work. And we say no. No, that's not going to work. But for the couples that actually get it right, that's what they're doing. They're changing how they love each other, along with their changes as individuals. They're committed to that. They're committed to taking that ride together. And they make it work for each other. And it is such a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. I'm cognizant of, last year I supported my mom through her passing. Mm-hmm. And the awareness that every interaction that I had with her was the last. She had cancer removed her brain, and so like the forebrain was starting to shut down. And literally from day to day, it was like like I would experience her in the evening, and then in the morning she would have lost more function. Right, so it was literally so poignant, like moment to moment, evening to evening, like snapshotting these in my mind, because literally the next day there would be less of her available. And so I've often translated that experience to my relationship with my husband since then. You know, when I start to get into ruts of like taking him for granted, or, you know, whatever, you know, grouchy, whatever. And like that realization of this is the only life we have together, right? Yeah. Like, you know, I'm a Buddhist and I believe in reincarnation, but who's to know if we'll ever meet, you know, like who's to know, right?
Right.
And we'll never be Davy and Chris. We will never be this emanation, this expression that we are now. And so every single moment that we share together will never come again, ever in the entire universe. And we have no idea when we won't have any more of these moments. So that that awareness of how precious and fragile life is, and how, what a privilege and a gift it is to have found love and partnership in this
Yeah.
life, right?
Oh
And
my
then
God.
again, how the external world, the modern world, wants us to be absorbed in everything but that love and that connection.
Yeah.
So it's so precious. So I want to
Yeah.
kind of shift gears here, if we may, because we've been talking
Oh,
about
sure.
happy couples.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But what about people who are in this pandemic and they aren't coupled, or they're
Yeah.
just the beginning stages of a relationship and they're not quarantining together? So
Yes.
what are some ways, what are some things that you're seeing, like how people are navigating these spaces, or things to be mindful of or aware of? Like, a very simple thing, like, if we're dating in the age of masks, like how do
Yeah.
masks interfere with connection, that type of thing.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. It's a big deal that I don't think really gets enough attention, because so much of what we perceive about each other, our communication with each other, is nonverbal.
Yes, exactly. We feel each other and we read cues, right? We just read the energy as well as the movement.
Of all our communication, 80% of it is verbal, maybe a little more. 80% is nonverbal. Forgive me. 80% or more is nonverbal. That's a big chunk. That means that a lot of it comes from what I see in your face when you look at me.
Yeah.
So if you got this thing on and you're hiding clearly most of your expression, I mean, eyes are very expressive, of course, but we still get a lot of cues about how you really feel, what you're really thinking, from what's going on facially.
Yeah.
And over half of it is blocked routinely. If you're talking about being single and dating somebody new,
Mm-hmm.
is pretty much somebody you don't really know. So what I always suggest is that you do something like we're doing right now. You just get on a Zoom call and sort of just have some phone time, some FaceTime, so you can actually see their faces. Since you can't be in the same room with them, at least see their faces. Communication is so much clearer when you can actually see the face of the person you're talking to. Of course, being on the phone is next. Text messages are the worst, but we use them the most. For exactly that reason, because they're the ones that keep us at the greatest distance. But at least in this way, we can pick up each other's energy much better, even though we can't be in the same room. So if it's someone that you don't know, I always suggest doing something like this, at least until you feel comfortable moving to a public space, never your space, to a public space to meet in person. And then, of course, you have to agree on what your standards are as far as keeping yourself safe and protected in that public space. Because some people don't wear masks. They don't want to wear masks. They're not trying to wear masks. They don't want to go any place where it's required, yada, yada. And you might be at the opposite end of that spectrum. You need to know that before you agree to meet.
Well, I'm just about to say that this is a really good test of like compatibility in relationship, because the mask no mask discussion is
Yes.
so divisive. So it's kind of like you're gonna know right off the bat, like,
Yes.
are you a masky or a non-masky kind of thing? And that might be a bridge too far to gap right there. Gap too far to bridge. Sorry. Too far to bridge.
But wouldn't you rather know that sooner than later?
Amen. That's what I'm saying. You get to know right off the bat. You don't have to, fiddly fuck around with all this other nonsense. Just, will you wear a mask or not? It's kind of like, are you going to wear a condom or not? It's kind of a conversation to me.
Yes, yes, yes. And all of that. That's an important consideration now that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
So, just as far as keeping yourself safe, that's a big deal. It needs to be figured out ahead of time. Mm-hmm. It's not something you want to be trying to talk somebody into or out of once you get face to face. That's not the deal. Don't do that. Please don't do that. So, and one of the other things is to always let someone know where you're going and who you're going with. I tell this to my ladies all the time, especially. I want them to have a Google Voice phone number so that they're not giving out their actual cell phone numbers. Google Voice numbers will ring to your cell phone if you set it to do that. But at least you can give out a number that's not directly tied to your address.
Yeah.
I just don't do that. Just get the Google Voice number. It's free and you can use it in public for whatever. And it'll help to keep you safer. The second thing is when you agree to go somewhere, have a designated person that you actually share your location with. There's this lovely gizmo on our phones that allows us to share our location with anybody we pick on our contact list. Pick somebody from that list and say, just send them a quick text. You don't have to break down all the details. It's like, look, I have a date with so-and-so at this date, this time, and I expect to be back around this time. I'm going to share my location when I leave. And then do that. Turn on the share the location button and share your location indefinitely. Don't share it for an hour or 2 hours because you don't know what may happen. Yeah. You don't know what may delay you. You don't know. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything ominous. You could just decide to take a detour for an extra scoop of ice cream on your way back home. Mm-hmm. But share your location so somebody knows where to start looking for you if you're not back at the appointed time. Somebody needs to know that. Even if you're a fully formed adult, somebody needs to know that.
Especially if you're a fully formed adult living alone. Right?
That.
Yeah, especially.
That part.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people that are just fucking disappearing off the street. So like, this is not a small thing. It's for single ladies. It's important.
Yes.
That we're meeting needs for care, and self-protection and self-awareness. And chances are nothing's going to happen, but we don't want to be in that chance where something could happen. I remember doing that when I was out in the world dating. It's like I had my best friend's like, okay, I'm going on a date tonight. It's with this person. This is their contact information, so that you never know. I mean, you could get into a car accident, right?
Right. So. It's always in your best interest to take that extra step for your own safety.
Yes.
I have other women who go a step further and they take a picture of him and the license plate.
Ooh.
I love that idea as well.
Especially when you're dating.
If you have an opportunity to do that and you don't think it's going to cause you any static, do that too.
Yeah.
Do that too. I'm just a big fan of safety first. Safety for women is just getting more and more tenuous as time goes on. It's just harder and harder to maintain it, especially if you're unarmed and you're single and you look like an easy mark. So take these extra steps to ensure your own safety. You'll still have a good time. It's not like it's going to take away from the fun that you can have together, but just take these extra steps to keep yourself safe. And the other thing that I've seen is like a massive uptick in online dating, of course. People are swiping left and right and up and down and over through the woods and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a little scary because a lot of them are being more reckless now than they were before. Yeah. Because many of them have this sort of fatalistic outlook. It's like, well, we're already locked down and why am I trying to be safe if this is such a big deal? I'm going out with a bang. I'm going out with a party. I'm going out like it's 1999, and they have that attitude. So they're being more reckless than maybe they would have been even before this pandemic. I mean, there are people actually throwing COVID parties.
Yeah, I remember that. And like, I think they're like reading police are shutting them down and that sort of thing. Yes, exactly. But is that an our age demographic though? Or is that like the millennials? Like, let's be real here.
Well,
are people in there?
Yeah, that is true.
Are people over 40 throwing COVID parties? Because we're, some of us are like.
That is true. know better. We're
a little bit close to that age bracket where this might be fatal. So
you're right. That's true too. We usually know better. Our riskiness comes in on the sex part. we're still risking unprotected sex. We're still risking it. Still. Like, seriously? How difficult is it to just use the condom every time? Especially with somebody you just met.
Yeah.
Somebody new in your life. Just use it. Just do it. Just do it. How much are you really missing by using it compared to what you really could be missing when you don't?
That's a good point. Compared, because that first question is like, well, you know, there's
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
of my favorite arguments for using condoms, particularly with new people, is the and this really like hit the nail on the head for me, was that we bond chemically and hormonally when there's a fluid exchange, right? So it's like, you know, if it's someone you're just playing with and you don't necessarily want to bond with them, then
Right.
you want to make sure that you have a barrier in place so that you are, because we literally hormonally and chemically bond with people. That's the way we're wired. And again, you know, the wiring is amazing, but if we don't want to be that bonded to this person because we're not that certain, it's like, it's, you know, obviously the protection of the you know, like health protection, but also it's emotional protection, right? So we're not like have this oxytocin link going on with this person, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's important. Important. I always advise my lovelies, don't have sex with anybody you wouldn't want to be like.
that, that,
Just saying.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Just saying.
Yes, that's a good point.
Just saying. Because of what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Even with the condom, there is an energetic exchange that happens when people have sex together.
Oh yeah.
And they impact each other energetically.
Yeah.
Spiritually.
Yeah.
Emotionally. Psychologically. It can be proven anatomically that your emotional state changes the composition of semen. It changes it. It changes how it's transmitted. It changes what's transmitted. Emotions have a chemical correlation.
Yes.
There are certain chemicals that are only present when you feel a certain way. And those things get transferred and exchanged during sex. So if you're having sex with someone who is angry or who doesn't like you, but they're there for the sexual release, everything that they're trying to dump gets dumped into you, the receptacle, the receiver, the incubator. We incubate more than babies. We also incubate attitudes. We incubate whatever comes into us because that's what we're designed to do. Our anatomy is a metaphor for what happens to us emotionally and psychologically when we join with other people. It's like they become part of us. We don't become part of them.
Yeah.
They come into our bodies. They wear us like clothes. You can easily put them on and take them off. We don't have it that way. And everything that comes with them stays with us.
Mm-hmm.
It may not stay permanently, but it stays much longer than it takes them to ejaculate.
Amen. Yeah. And
as soon as they come out, they can take a shower and be done. We don't have it like that. Now, we can argue and fuss all day long about the fairness of that. Immaterial. It's still what it is. It is what it is. We didn't choose it, but it still is what it is. So it makes sense to protect ourselves against anything that would deplete us, that would drain us, that would make us feel worse about the whole encounter. That's why I am not a fan of casual sex. There is nothing casual about sex, and we need to stop treating it like there is.
Wow. Yes.
That exchange is long term. And if it wasn't long term, then all of those people that we talk to who've been sexually violated wouldn't still be suffering from it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, at its most basic, sex is skin to skin contact. Most basic. Once you strip away everything else, sex is skin to skin contact. It, by that argument, the argument that it really doesn't mean anything and it's really casual and it's not a big deal, then it shouldn't have any bigger impact on you than a handshake or a hug.
Mm-hmm. And we know that it
contact.
does.
Skin to skin contact, right? But we know that's not what happens. We know that's not how that works. We know that's why predators often use sex as a weapon.
Yeah.
Because they know how destructive it is. They know how much damage it can do. And that's been going on for human history. Human history. So there's nothing casual about it. No matter what we want to say, how we want to frame it, it's not casual. And we need to stop treating it as if it is. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Don't treat it like it's entertainment. Don't treat it like it's a toy. Don't treat it like it's something to be played with. Treat it like a responsible adult. That's why we save sex for responsible adults. At least we're supposed to. And that's why it's so problematic when teenagers do it, or when children do it, or when it happens to teenagers or children. That's part of the reason why it's so problematic. Because it's designed for grown folks. And folks over 40 should definitely have it figured out by now. At least for the most part, they should have that much figured out.
Well, I'm going to pause you there because I do want to. I love what you're saying about it's not casual, because it's not, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't have exchanges that aren't permanent but are wholesome and healthy. And everything that you're sharing with me also is reminding me of like the Sanskrit term for yoni or vagina, which is sacred space. Right? That's what that means, sacred space. And I 100% agree that the impact and the import and the potency of sexuality in this culture is so not understood and so diminished and so bastardized is the word that's coming. So I don't know what the word is there, but it's not a good word. It's But I will say in the case of children and teenagers, so not children, but once we hit puberty and we start developing, like we are designed to come into puberty at that age to be able to, procreate, because that is the human design. And this whole thing of us, not being adults until 18, that's like a social fabrication and social structure. And why I wanted to interrupt you is where I find the issue with younger people having sex is the absolute and utter lack of education. And this is why we as adults are all effed up around sex too, is because we are not being educated about healthy, wholesome, respectful. And when I say healthy, that's what I mean. I mean respectful of each other's human life, respectful of choice, mindful of anatomy and pleasure and pace. Like we are not instructed or given education in this culture in how to interact sexually as mature humans. And that's not necessarily reflective of our age.
That's very true.
Right? So that's why I wanted to pause you there and point that out. It's a lack of education, regardless of our chronological age, that is causing dysfunction for us sexually, and the unwholesomeness and the trauma that it causes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I call it the pornification.
Yeah.
Because the whole conditioning around porn is all things anti-healthy sex.
Yeah. And when we're talking about mainstream porn, for sure. And one of the beautiful things is that there are now starting to be alternative sources for erotica. And what is, I wouldn't even want to call it porn, right? I mean, technically it falls under the porn category, but it's more like erotic expression. It's more like erotic fantasy that's being filmed, as opposed to this mainstream degenerative, that's it, degenerative sexual habits.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is really what most of the industry is.
Exactly.
And has been. And that's why the effect of it is so widespread.
Yeah.
That's why it runs so deep in the fabric of society, even globally. That's why it runs so deep, but especially in America. Oh my gosh. There's still, I could talk to a 50-year-old man right now who got his primary sex education for watching porn.
Well, exactly, because there isn't an alternative that's being provided. And
That's it.
that's why we have this show, to have
Yeah.
people such as yourself who specialize in wholesome health. And I'm not using that term religiously, people. So you know me, when I mean wholesome, I mean having respect and consent.
Yes.
And awareness and love and enrichment. So when we have this sexual exchange, we're enriched and not depleted by it, like you were speaking of before.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the important part.
Yeah.
That's the important part, because sex has to be handled in a certain way in order for it to have its maximum positive benefit. It's like, I liken it to, I use this analogy a lot. It's sort of like a knife, right? A knife in an alley that gets picked up by somebody trying to rob me can kill me. The same knife in the hand of a surgeon can save me. There's nothing good or evil about the knife. It's the same blade, but the intention of the person using it is what determines its impact.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be more intentional about how we use it.
Yes.
So that we can have impact that actually leaves people happier that they shared that moment with us, rather than feeling depleted and broken and wondering what the hell just happened.
I'm just like, my whole body's sparkling from you saying that. And there, I did a video a few years ago about what if men learn from the time they were little boys that instead of their penis being a weapon of hymen destruction, to penetrate, but they learned that it was a tool for healing. Because in Sanskrit, lingam means wand of light.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's literally literally our birthright, is that our genitals are sacred space and wands of light. They are tools of healing and realization. And that's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why when it's used properly, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's why it's so beautiful. That's why it's so transcendent. That's why things can happen. You can perceive, feel, know things in that moment as a result of that exchange that you can't know in your daily, everyday life, for exactly that reason, for that element, the element of transcendency. It is there. It's just waiting. It's just waiting. It's always there, but you have to be intentional about it. It's not accidental. You aren't just going to stumble into it.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional about it. I just want people to be more mindful about how they use something that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Just be more mindful about it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Do the best by yourself first, and then do the best by your partner. If you cover that, it's going to be an amazing experience. If you do that, it will be an amazing experience that you will be very happy you had. That's as good as it gets. That's as good as it gets. Whether you're married or not married, that's as good as it gets. It has to make you feel, know, be better.
It's got to be medicine.
It's got to be medicine.
Sex is medicine.
Sex is medicine.
So unfortunately, we are running out of time today. And
This
this
is
has
so
been
much
such
fun.
an enriching conversation and went so many unexpected and brilliant places. And I just want to share, like, the wisdom bombs you were dropping today were sending glitter throughout my entire body. Yeah, just, it's so phenomenal. And I want to talk with you again. Um,
Yeah.
let's do more. In the meantime, though, how can people work with you as their guide? I mean, you just embody such profundity and such wisdom, and I know that people in our audience would probably love to have your support and guidance along their path of. So do you work with people who are currently in relationship to help them deepen that, or do you work with people only like in the dating realm?
Actually, I've worked with both,
Okay.
and I do enjoy both. Actually,
Yeah.
I really, really do, because love doesn't get any gooder. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the best space to be working in, especially with my peers,
Yeah.
because especially when I'm talking to women,
Mm-hmm.
men pretty much don't have any hangups about the idea that they should be loving lavishly and they should be enjoying their lives to the fullest. Men pretty much have that part sold up. You know, they don't have any problem with that. It's women who have a problem with that. We have all this guilt and shame, and what about the kids, and what are people going to think, and what about my family, and what about the husband, and yeah. And we think all this stuff, and we live our lives according to other people's expectations of us.
Mm-hmm.
Men don't have that issue nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to see the spark come alive in one of my peers when she gets the revelation. It's like, you know what? This really is my life. This really is my life. And I really do get to live it the way I want to live it. You know, and if I don't do it now, when?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, after 40, we're pretty much empty nesters and all that good stuff. And it's like,
Life's just getting
time.
started.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you mean I get another shot to do this?
Yeah.
Hello, we get to rewrite this book, and page 1 starts today. Because we don't have to bring the rest of the book with us.
Yeah.
Page 1 starts today. That's the good news. It's like, oh my goodness, you mean I can still have lavish love? Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as you remain open to it, because it may not come the way you expect. In fact, it usually doesn't. We're telling the whole truth. In fact, it usually doesn't. So you have to be willing to allow for that. But if you are, the surprise is worth it every time.
I hear that. It's surprised me the myriad ways it's shown up. And then when my husband finally landed, I was like, it's you.
See?
That's a surprise. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
This is a good one. This is like my chocolate chip cookies.
Come on now. Come on. Yes.
So how can people get a hold of you to work with you?
My website is www.getbacktopassion. All one word.
Amen.
Getbacktopassion.com. And I have a nice little self-love checklist that's downloadable. And I have a bonus giveaway too. I won't tell you what that is, but it's fun. It's a checklist to make sure you're on track. Or if you're not on track, I'll give you a couple of little things to do to get you back on track. Mm-hmm. But everything about your love starts with you, and not your partner. And so we have to rewrite that a little bit. So that's why I wrote the download, to help you rewrite that. So please go grab one. Have one on me.
I love that. Getbacktopassion.com to get your little love list. I love that. I love that. And we will have your information under this video and on our website for people to access as well. You can just click the link under this video. And thank you so much, Eden. It was such a pleasure and a joy and a wisdom journey today with you, and we will be in touch for sure about playing again on Sex is Medicine, because this is just so enriching and so rewarding. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in this evening to this another fabulous episode. We have such amazing people. And if you want to have your Sex is Medicine episodes delivered hot and fresh to your inbox every Saturday morning, make sure you go to authentictantra.com and sign up for any of our free offerings, and or go to the bottom of every page and sign up for Sex as Medicine tips delivered hot and fresh to your inbox. Also, make sure that you follow us on all social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, well, the three main ones, at Authentic Tantra. And you're on social media too. I see you all the time. What's your social media handle there?
Get Back to Passion.
Get Back to Passion. So follow Get Back to Passion on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well. And you can follow the incredible advice of this amazing woman. And so we will see you next week. Our episode next week is pretty awesome. We're going to be talking about healing after a miscarriage. So very necessary, poignant, and profound conversation that we don't often address in this culture is, what happens when we lose a child that we very much wanted. So what is the aftermath of that? What does that look like? And how can we begin that process of healing? That's one of the results of having fantastic sex, is having fantastic babies.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Blessings.
Thank you.